All right, there we go. So I stole this theme of terra periculosa, or dangerous land, from a church in the United Kingdom, Grace Church. So they do some very, very creative things. And they looked at the book of Acts, and they have a whole communion service that they planned around this idea of the church moving into new places and to connect with new people. And as the church went more public, things got more and more dangerous. Early on in the book of Acts, you will hear the story, for instance, of the stoning of Stephen. You might compare what happened to Stephen to a public lynching. And the book of Acts moves further and further out into the world and deals with some of the dangers that the Christians faced. And I couldn't think of this idea of a dangerous land without connecting it to our present moment and what's going on in our country. The way that our whole nation can be a dangerous land if your skin is black or brown. After Michael Brown's death, an important infographic, 10 Rules of Survival If Stopped by the Police, was developed by a man named David Miller, who founded the Dare to Be King project. So then, in partnership with Trinity United Church of Christ, a predominantly African-American church on the south side of Chicago, among other churches, the SALT Project created an Emmy-nominated short film to bring this to an even wider audience. As SALT describes it, there's a tragic character to this film and to Miller's rules. They're both profoundly necessary, an act of practical wisdom and love, and an eloquently devastating indictment of a society in which such rules would be necessary. And it's also true, of course, that the realities of injustice and racism make following such rules no guarantee of safety. So this morning, I would like to share that little clip with you as part of the sermon.
Ten rules.
10 rules.
10 rules.
10 rules of survival.
10 rules of survival if stopped by the police.
Number 1, be polite and respectful when stopped by the police.
Be polite.
Be respectful.
Remember that your goal is to get home safely.
Your goal is to get home safely.
Your goal is to get home safely. I'm sorry.
Number 2, if you feel your rights have been violated, you and your parents have a right to file a formal complaint with your local police jurisdiction.
Number 3, do not, under any circumstances, get in an argument with the police.
Number 4, always remember that anything you say or do can be used against you in court.
Number 5, keep your hands in plain sight.
Make sure the police can see your hands at all times.
Number 6, avoid physical contact with police officers. Do not make any sudden movements and keep your hands out of your pockets.
Number 7,
Do not.
Do not.
Do not, do not, do not, do not.
Do not run, even if you are afraid. Number 8, even if you believe you are innocent, do not resist arrest.
Number 9, if you are arrested, do not make any statements about the incident until you are able to meet with a lawyer or public defender.
Number 10, stay calm. and remain in control.
Watch your words. Watch your body language.
Watch your emotions. Remember,
Remember, your goal is to get home safely.
Get home safely.
So, as we'll see the next week, the task of the church doesn't get any easier as they went out at Jesus' command to love and include people who were less and less like themselves. I got to think with this theme of dangerous lands, what strange and uncomfortable places Jesus might be sending us right now. I believe that one such important, uncomfortable place is into a deeper conversation on race in America. White people are often uncomfortable talking about race because we feel doing or saying the wrong thing, being insensitive. We frequently feel defensive, and we don't want to engage in that conversation at all. People of color are often tired of trying to explain their rage, their fear, their pain to those who have not lived their experience. In fact, they will probably resent having to explain it at all. After Jesus ascended and the Holy Spirit came and the church was born, the disciples began to draw the circle of people they reached with Jesus' message wider and included more and more in that young church. And it did not always go smoothly. If we keep the circle small and we include only people who look and think and act like us, it can feel easier and more comfortable, safer. But that wasn't what God had in mind. Jesus sent them out into all nations, to all people who did not look like the disciples, speak like the disciples, or think like the disciples. The story that we heard from Acts today is about the conflict that grew between two different groups within the church almost immediately. The community meals that the church had and the way they shared food were a lifeline to the most vulnerable members of the church, the widows and their children. It was such an important ministry that soon the original disciples found they had no time for anything else, and they got kind of pastor grumpy about it. And there was conflict between the church members, the people like the disciples who were from Judea and spoke Aramaic, and others who were farther away from farther parts of the Jewish diaspora and spoke Greek instead. They were all Jewish, but culturally they were different. The Greek speakers believed their widows were not being as well taken care of as the Aramaic speakers were, and they were angry about it. This story tells about the creation of the very first deacons who were put in charge of sharing food with those who needed it. What you may not realize is that these new deacons all have Greek names. And in fact, one is even not Jewish, but a proselyte, meaning he's a Gentile who is part of the synagogue. The disciples solved the issue not just by delegating the work, which we remember, But something that we tend to forget, they empowered those who felt their community was being shortchanged and left out. If the last few weeks have made anything clear, it's that we can't avoid the dangerous land of a difficult conversation. We can't mark it as they did on medieval maps and just say, there be dragons, and never go there. If the church is to fulfill her mission, not only do we need to draw the circle wide, but we need to listen. We need to listen to those who feel marginalized, oppressed in our society, and we need to empower them. That's what the apostles did when they dealt with that first conflict within the early church. They listened and they gave up power and control. And that's how the church continued to thrive and to grow. Let it be so today.